Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satya Devaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Offering my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our most merciful Mother Sai, whose grace is so infinite that he continues to bless us every week, bringing his gems to talk to us. And every time the experience uh, transcends from the early batches to the newer batches, which with each one of them having such a unique formative experience in their lives with Mother Sai. And we have one such amazing, uh, blessed gem of Sai, whose journey uh, started from Uganda, where he completed his primary and secondary education and had the good fortune of being selected as a special volunteer to serve Bhagwan and the delegates who visited East Africa in the June of 1968. Bhagwan had instructed him to join his junior college, which at the time had not yet started. Since Bhagwan's return to India, Swami sent several messages to come and join his institution, and as a fruit of that Agnya or order, in 1970, our speaker for today, after his secondary school O level exams, joined the Sathya Sai Arts and Science College in its second year of inception. He had the good fortune to be in the first batch of 12 students who stayed in the newly opened hostel and experienced the initial setting up of the hostel and the various activities which were laid out by Bhagwan himself. And he was also designated as the first warden of the hostel by Bhagwan. In 1972, during the first summer course, he was involved in organizing the event and looked after the PA systems, electrical works, and general maintenance in Brindavan. And this continued each year until he left for UK in 1974 as per Bhagwan's instructions, where he continued working with the Sathya Sai organization as the regional chairman for the Midlands region, Region 4, as the National Spiritual Coordinator, National Seva Coordinator, and has addressed numerable gatherings in UK, Europe, US, and speaks of Swami and his experiences at the Divine Lotus feet. His brother was a speaker in the same forum 2 years ago, and we are blessed to have brother Navinchandra Patel talking to us with Swami's grace. Over to you, brother, and Sai Ram. Welcome to Sai Govind Satsangh.
Jai Sai Ram, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor to address you all today. This address is not something that we students take it lightly. It is by the grace of Bhagwan, our Lord, Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, that we have been given this platform, and without him, we as students don't exist. We are nobody. As Swami says, you may have 0, 0, 0, 0s, but unless he's in front of us, that is number one. It counts nothing. It is zero, totally zero. So Swami in front of us, it could be million, it could be trillion, it could be any number. And without him, we are nobody. So brothers and sisters, whatever I'm going to speak to you today is all my own personal experience, and I'm not trying to advocate any more than that. I'm not trying to take anybody else's experiences or interests and giving you those examples here today is not a third hand, it's a first hand experience that I'm going to talk to you about. So let me start. It's my journey started when I was about 14, 15 in Kampala, Uganda, East Africa. And I used to go to the temple purely to find, because in my mind, I had God exists, but where is he? People talk about that God is in there, in the temple, in the mandirs, that's places of worship. So when my parents moved into Kampala, um, and I used to go to these temples searching for the God as such. One fine day, it so happened that one of my fellow students saw me in the temple and says, "Oh, I didn't realize you were also interested in coming temples regularly," because I used to go there every day virtually. And then he said, "Do you know that there is another little temple, Bhajan group, just on the main road, that's Kampala Road, and in somebody's house. They do bhajans every Thursday." I thought, okay, I'll have a go at it. I'll check it out. And I went to this place. It was somebody's house. And the house is such that it is not sort of a temple as such, but it's somebody's house. So you got their beds and settees and all that sort of thing. And somehow on Thursday, they manage it, they move the furniture slightly, and everybody sits in there, have bhajans for a couple of hours, and then do the aarti and then come out. That is how it used to be. So this carried on for a while. But the main thing that I found was that I'm still looking for this Bhagawan, this God, this power that should have been there. Because right from childhood, as I say, it was inculcated in my mind. When we were in a very rural place where my father was a manager, my father in the evening, we didn't have any entertainment. Those days there were not televisions or uh, that sort of thing. So in the evening, my father used to sit with us and read chapters of Ramayana and Mahabharata. And from there, it slowly, these things sort of embedded into my mind that, there is that God or the higher power that I need to go and search for. So when I was in this temple, when visited this people's home and doing this Thursday bhajan, I was still searching for it. And it so happened that in around 1968, early 1968, it was told to us that Swami, Sai Baba, who this Thursday bhajans were for, he is coming to Africa, coming to Kampala, and they need us volunteers to go and volunteer there. Those days, kids of my age, there were very, very few in the centers. They were only mainly older people, older generations. And so few of us who were there, we came together. We were told this is where Bhagwan is going to stay, i.e. that is Dr. C.G. Patel's home. And that's where we started going there after these Thursday bhajans and getting the place ready. There was a special extended extension created for Bhagwan. A two-story building was erected adjacent to adjoining Dr. C.G. Patel's residence, and we started going there, getting things ready for Bhagwan, because the idea was that Bhagwan would come there in June. In 1968, April or so, I believe, there was the first World Conference set up in Dharmakshetra, Mumbai, Bombay. At that time, various center chairs, center presidents, whatever we call, gave their reports, very elaborate reports. And outside India, there were very, very few centers of Swami outside India. So it came to Dr. C.G. Patel to give a report on the service activities or the activities that were done in Africa, because he was the only known person in Africa region as such. So Dr. C.G. Patel got up and said, we love you, Swami, and our devotees love you, Swami. In a very short, sweet message, he said, Swami, we would like to see you come. We invite you to Africa. In very short few words. We don't do much of the activities because we don't know much about it. So please accept our invitation to come to Africa. And would you believe it, at the end of the conference, Swami, at the summing up time, Swami announced that he was coming to Africa in June. That was again a promise that he had given to Dr. C.G. Patel and Madhuvan, i.e. Dr. C.G. Patel's wife. And that was going on for some time. He had given this promise that I'll come to your home in June, but he had not specified what year. And this is the beauty of Swami. He says, I'll come. He never specifies a specific date and timing and all that sort. So anyway, come to each June, we're expecting Swami not there. But in 1968, when he had announced that he was coming, so everything was being made, preparations were done, and Swami left India in June, I believe on 29th or 30th, I'm not sure. But he arrived in Nairobi on 30th of June, 1968. And Nairobi, that is the first stop. There were no direct planes to Kampala or vicinity of Kampala. The direct plane from Mumbai or Bombay would end up in Nairobi. And Nairobi is in a different state to Kampala. Kampala is in Uganda and Nairobi is in Kenya. And there is a distance of about 12 hours drive from Nairobi to Kampala if you're traveling that. Or you could travel by a flight from Nairobi to Entebbe, which is the nearest airport to Kampala, which is about 20 miles or so from Kampala. So the idea was that Swami would come to Nairobi, and from Nairobi, he would fly to Entebbe to reach Kampala. And Swami landed in Nairobi. After a while, Swami says, I've got a lot of devotees waiting on the road for me. Now, dear brothers and sisters, let me tell you that there was no public announcement to this effect that Swami was coming to Africa. This was only a private visit as per Swami's instructions. This was a private visit to Dr. C.G. Patel's home in Africa. So there were no public announcements made. But Nairobi Airport, Swami decides, I've got a lot of devotees waiting on the road to see me, to have a glance of me. And he wanted to travel from Nairobi to Kampala by road. Those days, it was not all tarmac roads, asphalt road, as you would call it. But no, they were moram roads, they were mud roads, that sort of thing. So the journey was going to be very, very hard. But that is what Swami wanted to do, that his devotees were waiting at the road, on the roadside. So Swami took off from Nairobi. On the road, there were a lot of people. Who were there? Africans. This message never went to African people. How did they get to know about it? They were lining up on the streets, on the side of the road. These are Swami's devotees. Swami somehow gets messages to them. And they were waiting for Bhagawan to arrive through them. In Swahili language, Bhagawan or God is called Mungu. And they were shouting, Mungu is coming to our home. God is coming to our place. It's very interesting. So many times Swami had to make stops before he could proceed, just to give darshan to these people. Many times he had to climb on the side of the door and sometimes on top of the car. This was a Mercedes, I don't know, it was 250 or 300 model that was specially built for Bhagwan. It was a black car. And Swami climbed on top of it to give darshan to these people on the road. From Nairobi, right up to the border of Uganda, Kenya, the police from Kenyan government gave an escort to Swami right up to the Ugandan-Kenyan border. And this is interesting. This was not going to be a public sort of a tour as such. At Ugandan border, Ugandan-Kenyan border, the Ugandan police took over to take Swami right up to Kampala. This is a journey of 12 hours on a rough road, as told. But to cut the whole thing short, Swami reached Dr. C.G. Patel's home on 30th of June, just before midnight. That was just about 5 minutes before midnight. I was the gatekeeper. As I said, we were given special duties. There were 3 special volunteers. I was one of that. And my duty was at the gates. I opened the gates. Swami came through the car into the vicinity of the bungalow, got out of the car, straight into the bungalow, and walked into the front room, and then looked at Dr. C.G. Patel and Madhu and says, right, I promised you I'll be here just before the June turns to July. How Bhagwan keeps a promise. I'm just trying to bring a point to you, how he keeps his promises. Immediately came out of the bungalow because there were hundreds of devotees waiting outside. There was a massive marquee outside. So Swami came out of the building of the bungalow to give darshan to devotees outside. And most of the devotees who were sitting in the marquee were our Asian community people, because the Africans didn't know about Swami. And that time, what happens is that there is another learning message that's given to us, is that many times Swami has pointed this one out, that there is electricity going out into different bulbs, different color bulbs. You may have red one, blue one, yellow one, and white one. It's got different colors. But the electricity that is going on is just one electricity. one color. There's no color in there. There's one power that is going on. So he says to us, do not distinguish between the Africans and Indians, white people and all that sort of. They're different, like the bulbs, they're different colors. But the power that is going on is just that same one. So you should not distinguish between them. Invite these people into the market. And we did invite them, but the norm has been such that they are different from us and we are different. So they would not immediately come into these vicinities. But next day we had to tell them that way. So they slowly started coming in. One of the incidences I would like to bring to your notice there is that how my first interaction with Bhagawan, direct interaction with Bhagawan, was in Kampala. That was my first interaction. That is first time I had seen in physical form. I had not been to Prashantiram before. So to me, this was a new experience. I had chosen to do my duty around the clock, 24 hours. I'd taken a bit of time off from my studies and wanted to give my full time to Swami's visit here in Kampala. So I was doing my duty, as I said, was the gates. And the path that led from the bungalow right at the gates, there was gardens, and around the middle of the garden, there was a path led out to the gates. And the garden had been beautifully lawned, and there were flower beds. And the flower beds had beautiful rose gardens, rose plants. And in Africa, the soil is so beautiful, so good, very fertile soil. And this roses that were planted there, they're all thorny, but beautiful flowers. My domain was to decorate this path right up to the gates leading to the big marquee that was outside. And there was nobody to guide me what sort of patterns or whatever rangolis that could do on this path. And I had watched videos, Super 8 movies those days. And in that, you could see in Prashantiram, they do these beautiful rangolis. These ladies do beautiful rangolis with flower petals and kumkuns and that sort of thing. And so I decided, okay, I'll do something similar to that, but I'm not a professional, you see. So these ladies have been doing for years. I started doing these patterns. So a couple of days, I must have done different kinds of pattern. And this particular day, one day I was doing this. This was early morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I was doing it and I'd run out of ideas. Probably that day I thought, Swami talks about the 5 world religions, the Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrian, yeah. So, and there are symbols to that. You got the Om, you got the Jesus Christ cross, you got the crescent and the star for the Islam, and you got the Zoroastrian flame, and you got the chakra. So that was a plan, to arrange the flowers on this path with those symbols on it. I started doing this in flowers. There are a lot of flowers available in Africa, so I had abundance of flowers to play with. I started doing, probably I did 1 or 2 or 3 symbols. Probably I did Om, then probably did the cross I was halfway through. This was 4 o'clock in the morning. And suddenly I felt that Swami was standing next to me. Now, there was nobody around at that time. And I thought, no, that is my mind playing up. So I just totally ignored it and I continued doing this flower petal on the path. And it's in the next moment I felt a kick on my backside. I shocked and turned around, looked up. Who is that? That is Swami standing in front of me. So I quickly got up. What do you say? Sai down? To Bhagawan himself, to Sai himself. So I was just, lost for words. How do I address him? This is my first encounter, direct encounter with Bhagawan. I just put a hands. And Swami, as usual, in a beautiful way, is admiring these beautiful roses that are planted around him. He's looking at this one of these roses, but he never sort of picks it up. He looks at it and smiles at it, and then at the same time, he tries to talk with me and say, "So, what are you doing?" I said, "Swami." No, first of all, he asks me, "What is your name?" So I said, "Swami, my name is Navin." As though he has not heard me. I mean, in a very timid voice, I've replied to Swami, as though Swami has not heard me. So he said, "What?" I said, "Navin," slightly on a slightly higher volume. By that time, Dr. C.G. Patel realizes that Swami is already outside. So he comes running outside. And he's again near me and Swami. So he adds his own bed and says, Swami, he says Navin, N-A-V-I-N. Please shut up. This is how Swami, when he wants nobody else to be the part of that conversation, how he stops them and stops Dr. C.G. Patel talking and says, let him talk. So anyway, this conversation goes on, and he asks me, so what are you doing now? I said, Swami, I'm doing this patterns, and then I describe what it is. And he says, oh, good. So what is going to happen to that after that? I said, Swami, I've done it for you. I'm expecting that when you come to give darshan outside, you'll walk through this pathway and then give darshan to devotees sitting outside in the market. And Swami says, really? I'll walk over the thorny bushes, but not on the flowers, not on the symbols that you've created. Huh? This is a shock to me, because I so lovingly have done it. Have I done a mistake or something? Swami says, no divinity. This is my first lesson. No divinity will walk over these symbols that you have created that is on the floor. Symbols are not to be trodden upon. That's the first lesson that I've learned. So, dear brothers and sisters, devotees of Bhagawan, let me tell you, no divinity will trample over symbols like that. So a lesson to us as well is that we should never leave any symbols of divinity on the floor or somewhere where people are going to try over it and misuse it. After that little conversation, Swami asked me, so what are you studying? I said, Swami, soon in a year or two, I'll be appearing for my O-level examination. Okay, so after that, what is your plan? I said, Swami, that I'm going to London or UK to do my further studies. Oh, okay. Then he looks at me partly and then takes a 360 degrees turn where he's standing, and then looks at me and says, come to my college. I'll give you admission now. Huh? Now this Sai Baba, who I don't, sorry to say this, but at that time, I didn't have full faith in this so-called Sai Baba. And I thought, okay, fine. But I've already secured seat in UK. So I'll see what happens. After that conversation, Swami goes back to the bungalow, straight back to his room. So he had come out specially talking and nobody else. And then he goes back to the room. And this is interesting. After all these things have been done, Swami, when he left back for India after 14, 15 days, that it was in Africa, every time Dr. C.G. Patel and Bhagawan returned to Swami for festivals and things like that, he would send a message through them for me, saying, tell that boy to come to me. Now, dear brothers and sisters, let me point out that in 1968, there were no plans of Swami starting a men's college in India. There was the women's college that Swami had started at Anandapur, but in men's college, no, nothing there, no plans, nothing. And here is this Sai Baba telling me that I'll give you admission now. So, okay. Obviously, I had not heard anything about that. But every time, as I said, Dr. C.J. Patel and Bhagawan went back and Swami sent some message. When I finished my O-level examination, our examinations occurs in November, December in Africa. And after that, the colleges don't open in UK or in India till about July, August, September. So I had so much time to kill. So between 3 or 4 hours, we decided, okay, what are we going to do? We did a tour around East Africa. So we went from city to city, from town to town, from Uganda to Kenya to Tanzania, and then returned back from Lake Victoria over to Kampala. Visiting science centers, singing Bhagwan's glory, bhajans, that sort of thing we did. And then what? Coming near to May 1970, Dr. C.J. Patel says, why don't you go to India now? Because soon you will be going to UK if you want to. Okay? But before you go there, Swami has been asking for you. Go to India. If you don't like it, go to UK. I said, okay, there's no harm in there. There's plenty of time. So I packed my bags, come to Bombay. Those days used to come by steamship, by the steamer. So from Mombasa right up to Bombay, in the monsoon seasons, had just started. So arrived in Bombay, stayed at somebody's place, and it so happened that it was Dharmakshetra's opening anniversary, and Swami was in Bombay. So we quickly made plans to go to Swami in Vrindavan, in Dharmakshetra in Mumbai. I never seen so big population devotees of Swami wanting to have a glimpse of Swami. When we reached Dharmakshetra, as you know, Dharmakshetra is on top of the hill, and there's a slope, and devotees are made to sit on this slope when Swami comes to your darshan. And there are squares laid out so that devotees can be set in these squares, and there are little lanes being created such that Swami can walk through that to give darshans to different quarters or squares of devotees sitting in there. So we came there and saw thousands of devotees, not seen that sort of crowd before. So we were quickly ushered into one of these little corners. So myself and one of my friends who were traveling with us, we came and we were pushed into these corners. And the volunteers, sort of bit aggressive, if I would use the words a bit politely, but anyway, that is what I found. We were pushed into these corners, so sat in this corner. In my hand, I had a letter that Dr. Sai Patel had given to me to give it to Swami. And we were so far away from the main dais, main stage. So, okay, we sat there. Swami came out. There were thousands of devotees, and as Swami comes through these lanes, devotees are pushing each other to get a front seat or front line to that Swami or give a letter or something like that. And as Swami used to come to one lane, this is where Swami was blocked. And Swami had to then choose another lane to go to another lane. And I thought, my God, in this way, we are not going to get an opportunity where Swami would come and take this letter. But somehow, when Swami knows you are there, he wants to see you, he will somehow make ways for you. He came out through different lanes and stood straight in front of me and says, "You got a letter for me." As though, he knew there was a letter for me. Nobody had sent a message to Swami saying, we were there from Africa and Dr. Sai Patel had given this letter to us. As soon as he said that, I handed over the letter. And he took the letter and just went away. Didn't say anything. As usual, the crowds after that darshan time, all, move around. Swami has gone back into the Dharmakshetra. There are different meetings set up. And there are thousands of devotees there. And all of a sudden, there's a message that is being broadcasted on the PA system saying, there are two boys, African boys, who arrived. Can they announce themselves? Can they come over to the stage? They need to be. They need to come to the stage. So, two of us, myself and this other student, both of us came from Kampala, looked at each other and said, that can't be us. We are Indians. We are not Africans. So, we just ignored it. Bhagawan was there that day. He says, come on, boys, they're looking for you. So go ahead, go in front. But we tried going in front, near to the stage, and there is about 3-4 lines of volunteers who would push us away and says, no, it's not for you. They're asking for 2 African boys. You're not Africans. Eventually, from a distance, Indra Shah sees us, knew us, because when he came to Africa with Swami, that is the time we were introduced to him. So he knew us. So he immediately calls us from that distance, and we were ushered over to into the Dharmakshetra, basically. And Swami's room at Dharmakshetra is upstairs on this lotus petal-like thing. And downstairs, there are halls. Sathya is one of that, I think. And we were made to stand at the bottom of these stairs. Excuse me. Made to stand at the bottom of the the stairs. And Swami saw us as he was coming down the stairs and said, boys, go inside, meaning us go inside the the Sathya meeting. What was there in the meeting? There was Balvikas students meeting, and Swami was going to give them a talk or something like that there. We were ushered into that corner. And that was our first initiation, basically. Swami said, yes, you join the children now. So that is how we came over to Mumbai, Dharmakshetra. After this, Swami was going back to Vrindavan, and he asked myself and this boy who was with me to accompany Swami's 2 cars back to Vrindavan. There were incidences on the road. One of the things that I would like to point out is that Swami told me that, look, you look after one car and the other boy sits in the other car. And ensure that the driver that you are with don't drive too fast. Those days, the roads between Mumbai, Bombay, right to Bangalore, they were mud roads. They were not fully tarmac highway roads. So there were bumps and that sort of pit holes and all that sort of thing. If you drove too fast, you could damage the springs on the cars and that sort of thing. We took off. Swami left by the plane, and we were in these 2 cars. And on the way, we were going, and Swami had instructed me specifically that don't let the driver go beyond 30 miles per hour. But I was so eager to see Swami. So I saw that the driver was going a bit fast. So I just sort of ignored it because I wanted to reach Vrindavan or Bangalore quicker. And in that way, I sort of partly ignored Swami's instructions and let the driver speed up a bit. In doing that, what happened was that very late night, we have an incident wherein the car that we were traveling, one of the Impalas, the spring breaks. This is somewhere near Dharwad. And we are in nowhere. It's not in Dharwad itself, it's somewhere outside on roads. So the driver tells me that we have got to get a mechanic to get this repaired because the spring is broken. Somehow get the car to a garage in Dharwad. They had to repair the car overnight to get it ready. Next morning, took off and reached Vrindavan. What happens in Vrindavan is different. Swami is already there in Vrindavan because he flew to Bangalore. And then he's waiting for us as though Swami doesn't know what has been happening to us on the road. At the human level, Swami appears that he is very concerned about it. He is concerned about it, but he appears that he doesn't know what is happening. And he wanted to know more about it. We reached Vrindavan fairly late in the night. Would you believe it? The whole day, Swami has not eaten. Why? Because he's waiting for us. He's been so concerned about us. And we silly boys, what we do is not follow Swami's instruction and give Swami pain. And thus Swami doesn't eat, saying, where are my boys? They should have been here. What's happened to them? There were not those days where we could phone up and say, oh yes, we are on the way, the mobile phones, and the car is broken down. No, we had no communication. Even if you went to STD, it would take hours before you get connection or something like that. So anyway, better to travel. We made our way. As we reach Vrindavan, we find that Swami has already gone to his bedroom. He's not eaten. And those days, there used to be the person called Rama Brahman. Few of you people may know him. Ravi Shankar already knows Rama Brahman. Big-hearted person, big personality. He looks at us. You boys, you made Swami not eat anything. He starved whole day for you. And you come this late. He was very angry at us. And obviously, we were put up in one of the houses near to Vrindavan. And next morning, we were back in front of Swami. Swami said, what happened? He explained everything. I told you not to go fast. And you let the driver go fast. He looks at me a bit angrily. Not that he's ever angry at you, but he's just trying to teach us a lesson. If he has given you an instruction, you follow that to a letter, exactly what he said. And here, even though we are so eager to see him, to see the God, we forget that, try to think, yes, so, let's speed up. And that's what we should not have done. So, nearly an hour on. Let me come to other aspects of our hostel. I've told there's few other stories, but the hostel in the college was set up in 1969, but it was only the college, no hostel. 1970, when we came there was still no building, hostel building. Swami quickly gets some construction done. Where is it? Where is the hostel? It is above the 3 garages. As you enter Vrindavan, on the left-hand side, there were 3 garages for Swami's cars. There was single-story building. The second story is put up. And the story about the garage is of a hostel. And the hostel was probably about 15 feet by about 30 feet or so. Small. So it could easily accommodate about 30 students or so. There were squares been put up. There were no rooms. It was just a dormitory. And the roof was just a metal sheet. And we had these squares set up, about 30 squares or so. So each person would have a space of about 5 feet long by about 2.5 feet wide. That was your space. And it an open dormitory. So Swami then called some of us, took us into the hostel, and then there was no furniture, nothing. It was just bare floor. Swami says, this is going to be your hostel. And there was no furniture, as I said. But that day, when he took us upstairs, the workmen, they had a broken down table there that they were using it to go up and down to painting, whitewash the walls. So Swami looked at it, he just went and sat on top of it, even though he was dirty. He was a bit concerned that, it was dirty and Swami was going to sit on it. But somehow just Swami sat on it and looked at it. This is going to be your hostel. Next day, I think the same day, he says, okay, who are the students who will be here in this hostel? Took a piece of paper and then he started writing down the names. all the boys. And the 12 boys who were selected, I was one of the Ravishankar was one. The 12 boys who were there, their names were put up. Navin Patel, Anup Shah, Chaitanya, Satish, and the rest of the other people's names were put up. 12 names came. This list of names that were there, Swami gave it to me and says, Navin, you take charge of it. So basically Swami says, I don't want to appoint a hostel warden for your hostel. You will look after the interests of the students or the hosteliers who are there. Anybody wanting to go out of Vrindavan for whatever reason is going to have a very good reason to go out. They can go out, but they must let Navin know about it. Okay, fine. Gave me the list, which I still have it with me. I preserved it, and in that list, all these names that are there, give it to me. And the names that were given, some of the students who were likely to come out there was, one of them was, I clearly remember, was the son of Kamani. Kamani brothers, they were big name at that time. I'm sure you know Punachandra Auditorium. Who built it? Punachandra Kamani. He built that. Previous to that, there was a smaller hall at that place where the Punachandra Auditorium. He came to Swami, and he's a Bombayite. And after his devotion to Swami, he said, Swami, all this money, I want to do something for you. And first time, Swami allows somebody to do these things, this Punachandra Kamani. He lets him demolish that building, that old hall, and big Punachandra Auditorium that you see now came up into existence. And the new thing, and the interesting thing is that Swami first time names something on for this particular person or somebody not Swami. It is Punachandra. That is the name that is Sai Govind Hall, that sort of thing. Not Sathya Sai Hall also. And it is quite an honor. Okay, Kamani's son, Swami gives him a place in the hostel. He's still not in Vrindavan yet. Yet his name has been put into bracket that he's coming over. So we thought, okay, sooner or later this guy is going to come out. But till I left, this guy never came out. He's lost. That's all I can say. There were so many good, lucky people like who managed to get in the hostel. That's why we came. So, Swami, our Swami is so democratic, so loving. So one day he sat with us and said, so boys, what are you going to do here? We didn't have any notion of what we are going to do. Somebody like me who has not been into hostel before, but knew some of the students who had been into hostel in Africa. We thought it was going to be terrible. The new students who come into hostel, they're taken Mickey off, they're made fun of it and all that sort of thing. So a bit of ragging goes on. So I thought maybe something like that. But no, Swami's hostel is very different. We are this time in the hostel. what would happen in the hostel? Swami says, look, as I said, our Swami is very, very democratic. And he looked at us and said, what are you going to do the whole day? And put people wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is how he was talking to us. So close. Why? Because around 5 o'clock, the Suprabhatam starts, the Omkar starts. So they're rushing around, the noises and all that stuff. Sometimes they don't give me peace as well. That is not what you're going to do here in Vrindavan. So you students, you need your sleep as well. What I suggest is that you wake up at about 5 o'clock. And then, do you think you want to do Suprabhatam in the morning? Okay, you do Suprabhatam. 5:30 in the morning, start Suprabhatam. But you don't need to have a bath and clean yourself and all that stuff. Get up at about 5:15 or so. If you want to have a quick wash, go downstairs. There are taps. Wash your face and then come upstairs and then sit in your own bed. You know, we had little bedding that all of us had, little bag sheet, probably a blanket. Just sit there and where your place is from there. You know, start the Suprabhatam. So at 5:30, you start the Suprabhatam. You don't even need to have a brush, face wash. Just get up and do this thing. So Swami is not particular that, you know, one must have a bath and all that sort of thing, clean clothes and all. No. Just wake up, sit, start Omkar, and then Suprabhatam. Sorry, 21 Omkars, then Suprabhatam. And after the Suprabhatam, what are you going to do? What I suggest, this is Swami's own words, is that you boys need a bit of exercise as well. It's good for your body. After the Suprabhatam, sit silently for a few minutes in front of the photos here, in front of Swami, in front of the chair that we have made for Swami, and then silently get up, go downstairs and run for about 1.5 miles that is down the road towards, is it Beltur or Vertur? Beltur, I think, Beltur river. There's a river crossing near the stud farm. So go there, running, and then sit on the bridge if you feel tired, or come back running from there, back to the hostel, and downstairs you got showers. Take a bath, take a shower. Now, dear brothers and sisters, those days we didn't have facilities of hot water. There were no solar panels, things like that, which exists now. And we had to have this ice-cold shower. The other thing, let me remind you, is that those days, Bangalore and that area used to be very cold in winter time. I mentioned about the corrugated sheets above the hostel. We students used to sleep on these floors, concrete floors. Above was the corrugated sheets. Because of the water vapor would condense on the corrugated sheets in the winter time, and then droplets will fall over us. Ice cold. So this was the condition we were living in. We were prepared to shell out all this. Why? Because we love fun. That is our love for fun. We love fun. We would go through any pains. That is only bodily pains. But we wanted to be near fun. That was the main aim of us. Even though the college had so many students, the hostel had only 12. Slowly the hostel grew up, 15, 20, 30. And now Nowadays, you got a hostel of 500 or 1,000. But those days, we had only about 12 to 15 students. So Swami was exclusively to us. Whenever Swami would come to Vrindavan, he would spend such a lot of time with us. And as per Swami's instruction, as I was saying, have a shower. And then, and I promise you, this again Swami's word. I promise you, take the cold shower and you will not feel ill. People think that having a cold shower, you'll get cold, you'll get shivery, and you'll get ill. No, I promise you, you follow this instruction, you will not feel ill. And believe you me, none of us, the boys who were there, felt ill because we trusted Swami's words. After the shower, what would you do? Obviously, dress up. And Swami said, Vrindavan has got such a lot of space. All these gardens that are there. Hostel is there, college is there. Around there, there are beautiful trees and plants and all this. Take some of your books, go through what you're going to be taught that day in the college. So suppose you're a science student. What are you going to be studying that day? Just browse through that topic. Don't go deep into it. So suppose you're going to learn about zoology, botany, or you are an economy student. Study a bit of that. Don't go deep into it, but just browse on it. And during the daytime, when you go back to your lectures, the lecturer will obviously give you a big lecture on it, but you will then be able to follow that lecture very clearly and precisely. You will know exactly what is coming up. You will understand those topics better. And in the evening, when you come back, after sort of a bit of snacks, i.e. tea, coffee, whatever you want, your college is shut. Take the same books and again go and silently do a bit of studies of the whole days. Just browse through and brush yourselves the topics that you've gone through that day. And in doing that, at the end of the year, when the exams come, you don't have to burn the midnight oil, i.e., you don't have to cram everything and then vomit what you've learned or cramming into your examination papers, i.e., you've already understood because you have ruminated over your studies of that day. That is set in your mind. At the end of the year, when it's the exam time, just browse through your lecture notes. You don't have to cram everything. And you will sail through these examination papers easily. And believe you me, this is a formula Swami gave it to us. And we have all done the same, followed it to the letter. And I have, from my side, found it very beneficial and passed through my examinations. And I advise the same thing to the other students that I meet, younger students that I meet. And they also find this easy. Because at the end of the year, as Swami said, if you try to cram everything, the question paper has asked you a question, you're probably thinking wrongly of that answer, and you put your answer completely wrong. That's not the way to do it. So if you study this way, you can, when you go to the examination hall, you read the question properly and then write the paper properly. Those days, Swami used to come into our lecture theatres quite often, because many times he used to spend a lot of times in Vrindavan those days, and come into the lecture theatres of our practical rooms, practical classes. You know, I'm a science graduate, so used to come into laboratories as well and see what we were doing. And one incident I would tell you is that one day I was sitting in an examination hall and doing my paper. We still got time? Yeah, we got some time. I'm writing my paper. I didn't realize that Swami was standing behind me, watching what I was writing on the examination paper. Probably I was struggling on one or two questions there, so I was doing whatever I had to do. And Swami was looking at me, and then suddenly I realized Swami just taps me from the back on the chair. And when I turn around, Swami in front of is behind me. So I said, shh, kept writing. So that's, you know, very interesting. You do not find the divinity in physical form standing behind, watching you, doing what you. And that time Swami was watching what I was doing, what I was writing, everything is okay. So when I finished the examination paper, handed it over to the invigilators, went back into the Vrindavan. Swami was there. He was struggling on one or two questions, isn't he? I know. So, but everything is going to be fine. Don't worry. When Swami has promised you everything is going to be fine, everything is going to be fine. And that's how I sailed my examination. Excuse me. So this is the role we had in the hostel. Swami, one of those things that Swami didn't like us doing, or anybody, Swami didn't like doing too much talk. Loose talk, definitely, no. And I will narrate to you another incident. In 1971, summertime, the students would go back to their homes. Few of us students, somebody like me, who came from Africa, we were the more or less first foreign students in Swami's college. So Swami wanted all the students to go back to their parents. So I had a good reason to, because I wanted to stay near Swami. This was a very good opportunity. So when Swami said, you all go back to your hometown, I told Swami, Swami, I'm not going in. I'm going to where Swami is. Why? I said, Swami, Africa's too far away. I want to stay near you, and I would rather stay where Swami is. Oh, no, go back. I said, Swami, Africa's too far away. I would like to stay with you. Okay. He agreed. So did he agree with few other students as well. And Swami said, okay, come to Prasanthi. We went to Prasanthi Nilayam. And soon after that, these few students that were there, about 5 or 7 of us, Swami said, okay, come with me. He took us to where? Anantapur Girls' College. At that time, the Anantapur Women's College, the new buildings were coming up. Previously, they were in the old buildings, the Anantapur town, I believe. And this new campus was coming up. So So Swami took us to this new campus. A lot of work was still going on, construction work going on. Furnitures were being laid out to the buildings and all that sort of thing. Walls being painted, etc. So Swami took us there, and he wanted us to work there along with Swami. Interesting. And one of the things that he did was, one of the things I noticed was, he told us how to be, he took us into a laboratory. In the laboratory benches, they needed to be polished. Before you polish, you need to sort of sandpaper it and all that stuff. So Swami took sandpaper and started rubbing it. This is how you do work. This is how you do. They started sandpapering. And then, nicely smooth surface. So you do it this way. And, he made us do that. So our Swami doesn't just talk. He physically does it first, shows us the way, and then asks us to follow that. Do first, then tell others. That is our Swami's message. So we were doing all this. Then coming to painting also, some of you may have been to Anandpur campus. There is a round building as you enter. And there are staircases. There is a long staircase either side of this round building. And right at the top is Swami's rooms. And the either side of that, these round buildings, around the staircase, there are beautiful murals that have been created. Now, there were some of these Americans who were doing some of these work. And Swami took the painting, the brush himself, and started painting on these murals. He started doing the murals himself. He says, this is how you do it, showing us that, you can do it as well. And it's beautiful, marvelous murals that Swami has drawn in that building. One needs to see that, especially those Anandpur women college students must have noticed it. But do they realize that some of those that were done was Swami himself who did it? So as I say, do first, then tell. That should be our motto as well. We may be Seva coordinators, we may be the Seva, the service, the organization leaders, but let's do it first before we tell others to do it. Yeah. Lead first, and then expect others to follow. Very quickly, after that, there's another incident that I would like to bring to your notice. One fine day, Swami told me, come here. And you see, you're coming with me to Bangalore. Other students were left there. Swami asked me to get my bag ready. He said, go and put it in the car. And three of us, the driver, Swami and myself, in that car, took off us for Vrindavan. Traveling with Swami alone. Interesting. What does Swami do when he's traveling with you? Swami talks to you like a normal person. You know, it's not. It doesn't appear to be godly, so you sometimes forget about it. Makes you forget about it. Not you forget. He makes you forget that. You are in the presence of divinity, and sometimes he does that. So while we were traveling, he asks me to sing bhajans, and I'm sure some of you know my singing is terrible. Ravi Shankar will probably say more about it, but singing is lousy. He asked me to sing a bhajan. I said, Swami, I can't sing. You know that. I said, no, you can sing. So somehow I managed to clear a bhajan. So, yeah, that is out of tune. No raga, no tala, nothing. So this is how you sing. He actually sang the bhajan. I said, this is how you sing. And it made me sing in that same tone. And that's the thing. So, he has been my teacher in teaching me bhajans as well. See? On the way, suddenly, those days, there were not hundreds of cars following Swami. Only car that was there was Swami's car. This is the Kampala Fiat I'm talking about. This big Fiat that was there. Why is Kampala Fiat? Because it came from Kampala. That's why I'm saying Kampala Fiat. But that's a different story. We were traveling this car. Suddenly, after some time, the car, Swami says, stop. So the driver stops. Now, where is the car? It is within a valley. And the road that is there going through, where we were going through, is a raised road. And surrounding it are fields, so cultivated fields. So the car has stopped. And these people who are working in the field suddenly notice that this car is stopped. They don't realize that this is Swami's car. And Swami comes out of the car. They all come running around, thinking somebody may be needing some help. So, people are generally very good. They try to help you, not expecting any help. And they were doing the same. They didn't realize that Swami, having seen Swami, my God, they were shocked as well. And they saw Swami at Swami's darshan. Wonderful. I mean, by that time, I had also come out of the car. I was staying next to Swami. The Swami was looking around. And then he asked these people, a particular person's name. Where is he? Swami, they said, he's not here, but he's somewhere in another field or somewhere. And one or two of them ran to go and pick up this, call this person. Swami waited all this time for this person to come over. This person came and he stood in front of Swami. And Swami blessed him, gave him vibhuti. Then I noticed, what was it? This person who Swami had called specifically, stopped for this person, was blind. Can you imagine God asking for a particular person by name and stopping for him to give him darshan, as though he especially came to give darshan? As I pointed out, in Africa, Swami had gone from Nairobi to Kampala on the road, and on the way, he had given darshan to so many devotees of his that we did not know. Same thing like this. I'm seeing it. Swami is so compassionate. He knows his every person, every devotee he has, whether you call yourself a devotee or not. Once you are uttered his name, you are always his. You may forget him, but he never forgets you. Let me point out, all these years, I've been near Swami. I've seen so many miracles. I've witnessed it. I've challenged Swami as well at times. And only then I've accepted the person in front of me. I'm still calling that person is the God Himself. That is Swami. That is our love. That is our son. Dear brothers and sisters, I think I've done my 1.5 hours. I've not probably given you many of the incidences and other things that I could narrate for hours. And I'm sure many of you know that once you start talking about Swami and his love for us, there is no time. There is one cannot limit it to just 1.5 hours. It can go for hours and hours and hours. It's a non-stop. You can talk about Swami for hours. But Swami is that infinite. His love is infinite. He loves everybody. Whether you're in this country or another country, no matter where you are in the world, Swami will take care of you. Whether you are in His presence, sometimes people feel that when you are in His presence, He will take care of you more than if you are away from Him. No, He takes care of you and everybody else equally. And I've had that sort of experience when my parents had to be evacuated from Africa, from Uganda, when Idi Amin threw out Asians from Uganda. My parents left as refugees from Kampala. But how Swami took care of them from Kampala all the way to UK. That's how we settled in the UK. And we came virtually penniless from Africa. But Swami said, I'll take care of it. That time, when this incident occurred, myself and my brother, younger brother Kiran, both of us were in Chandigarh. And Swami was in the mandir. It was bhajan time. And suddenly Swami came out of the bhajan hall and looked straight at me, and Kiran as well was sitting somewhere nearby. He said, your parents are in trouble, but I'll take care of it, don't worry. At that time, our parents were trying to leave Kampala, Uganda, and they were trying to board a flight that was that was organized by the UK government. And the obstacles that they had, because the Idi Amin's regime, especially the soldiers that were there, were ruthless. They were trying to murder people, the less said for them, the better. But in short, Swami took care of them. And Swami appeared to my father. He's an African. And he said, come with me. He ordered my father. And he said, I'll escort you straight into the plane. And he escorted them straight into the plane. And the plane took off, left Ugandan border, because there have been times when the planes have been recalled. But this time, planes left for UK. And Swami was as though he was with them. He was actually with them. He was giving us running commentary. Every few minutes, he was coming back to us. He said, now the plane has left the airport. It's leaving the Ugandan territory. And your parents are safe. When they landed in UK, Swami says, I'll take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry. It's your mind. What motive? Brothers and sisters, Swami may be 4,000 miles away from us. Swami may not be in physical form, but he always takes care of. Now also, when Swami's physical form is not there, he is seen and helping people all over the world in so many different places at the same time. It's not just one place. At one moment, he may be here in UK. At the same time, he may be in India or in Singapore. But that sort of incidences also have been recorded and people have seen that. So with those words, perhaps I could end. And if you've got any questions, please come forth. And whatever I've spoken from my heart. And I may have left some of the strings loose, but that is something for you to find out. Or it's a thoughtful process. It's a thought process. It's food for thought. Basically. Jai Sairam, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Sairam, sir. Sairam.
Sairam,
Absolutely.
Sairam, Navin.
Yeah.
You made me live through those days again.
Beautiful
Really.
days.
Yeah. So nice. So nice.
Wonderful. I mean, the messages, just reliving those moments, the messages that Swami exemplified in his own way, and how that has had an impact on you and your formative years, and that the beautiful way how he brings forth and sets how we have to be in our lives. I guess that's the beauty of our connect with Swami, because every person has a customized way of being drawn in, taken care, and nurtured, so that our journey to go towards him and within us happens in its own beautiful, blissful way. Hope we have another satsang, because there is so much more to hear. And what at least I realize, unless we get to hear all these wonderful experiences and narratives of how Swami uh, brought so many blessed souls during his sojourn physically on earth, and how he continues to inspire all of us uh, since his physical departure, if you want to call that. I do not know how do you call that at all. It was a journey. He came, he lit our lives, and lit many lamps around the world, trying to re-establish the divine doctrine of dharma and love in our hearts. So hopefully we'll have another session, brother, where you can continue. So the whole idea is, I know that it's not prepared and it comes straight from the heart, and I can notice that compared to what I thought is going to come in, you've given us brief glimpses here and there of journey in Kampala with Swami, journey in the starting years of the hostel. I'm sure there is more that has also happened since, where you have also served in the organization, and those wonderful moments that you should have had in that process. We hope to have you again soon on a part 2, where you can just take off from where you left. Time wise, yes, it is 9 here in Singapore, and I suppose it's 1 for you. It should be lunch or post lunch right now in the UK. So
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, sorry, 2 o'clock, yeah, 7 hours now. So looking forward to having you again on the series, and I'm hoping that many who tune in to listen to the recording, which should probably be up very soon, will get to hear these blissful moments with Sai, and those wonderful experiences and valuable lessons that have inspired you and have made you that student that you were in the organization, in Sathya Sai institution. Thank you so very much, and prayers to Bhagwan to continue blessing us week after week with his chosen ones, to inspire us, giving us that little food for thought to put into practice his message, his teachings, to make us a better and realized soul of love. Sai Ram. We'll finish it.
Sairam. Thank you.
Namaste. Yes.
Sairam.
समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की
Baba ki jai.
जय साई राम एवरीवन
Sairam. Sairam.
राम